Greetings.
Hello.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay.
Hello.
We are there. Brilliant. We're all together. Right, sorry we're a bit late, everybody. I think we just had some slight technical difficulties, but we're there. And it's good to see we've got people joined already. We've got a pile of people in there. So hello to everybody. I think what we'll do is just welcome really everybody to the first live Instagram live chat. This is the first one, hopefully, of many. So I thought maybe I'll just introduce myself. I think maybe many of you know who I am anyway. Basically the face behind Titanic memorabilia. Simon Medhurst, author of the book Titanic Day by Day, 366 Days with Titanic. Also, my great-grandfather was, that's the book. And my great-grandfather was Robert Hichens, who was at the helm and the quartermaster of Titanic. So, yeah, so that's myself. This is a new venture which I hope will continue, and we've got some other great guests coming along. But we've got two superstars today. So we start off our live Instagram with two superstars. Well, I'm quite chuffed with that one. So I'm going to just introduce who they are. I have my crib sheet ready to go. So we have Fran Capo, good, that's it. Comedienne, 20-time book author, motivational speaker, 9-time world record holder, most known as the Guinness Book of World Records. And I think this one's quite an interesting one. Fastest talking woman clocked at 603.32 words per minute. Now, when I saw that, I thought my wife was, but I've decided I've been beaten on that one. Fran has promised to talk slow today, and I think that's probably a good idea. She also the venture correspondent on a TV show called Live It Up with Donna Drake. Not only has Fran done a book signing at the top of Kilimanjaro, but she also did one down at the wrecksite of the Titanic on July the 10th, 2005, and became one of the last civilians, to go down. So that's Fran Capo, welcome. And then we have Dalal Bruchmann. Is that the correct way of saying your surname?
Yeah, Dalal.
You're happy?
Yeah,
but
totally
welcome to Dalal. He's an Austrian.
Austrian.
Do you know what? I've been reading that as Australian for the last, every time I've looked, and all of a sudden I've seen it's Austrian. Singer and musician. She's also a solo artist for Warner Classics, playing compositions by one of my favourite, Einaudi. Together with a composing partner, she writes soundtracks and scores for film and TV. She loves to read and is incredible. We'll get more interest. We'll find out more about you as well. Loves to read, incredibly interested in history and astronomy and everything Titanic. So welcome, Dalal. You are very welcome.
Thank you so much.
So that's fantastic to have you two with us.
Thank you.
We've got quite a few on. If people want to ask a question, I will try and see it as it goes zooming past. But if not, you're very welcome, everybody. I think what I found interesting was that this platform does give us the opportunity of that hands across the ocean. In fact, any ocean. I think what I've noticed is, especially with the Instagram, is that you're literally getting people from all over the world, from Dubai. I've noticed somebody gave away from Brazil, and we've got people from all over the world, which is a wonderful platform to have. You'll notice that my accent is not American.
No.
No, afraid not. It's interesting because my accent is very London, I'm afraid. So I'm a bit of a Londoner. So that's myself. So if you want
Simon,
to, sorry, go on.
I'm so sorry, Simon. Are you now in London, or are you in Ireland, or where are you?
I am in Essex, which is outside of London. So yeah, I moved to Essex, and that's where I now reside. So I actually live in Chelmsford, which is the birthplace of radio.
Oh, really?
It's where Marconi set up his factories and set up the Marconi, which to me is quite important. I'll explain that maybe a bit later.
Yes, I know exactly why you're going to say that.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. So so Marconi is my is my sort of thing I love most when it comes to Chelmsford anyway, which I didn't know till I got here. So, but yeah, you need to say where you're from, because you're definitely not in Austria.
No, no, I'm in Texas at the moment. I'm from Austria originally, but I'm in Austin.
Okay.
And
Fran.
Hello,
you would
German. Hello,
think
nach
with my
Deutschland.
New York accent that I would be from New York. Well, I am from New York, but I'm not living in New York. I am now living in a place called Weeki Wachee, which sounds like a made-up place.
Yeah.
It's in Florida. And then when people says it sounds like a made-up place, and I tell them that's where the mermaids are from, then really people think I'm off my moon. And I'm like, no, really, that's where the mermaids are from. So I'm in Weeki Wachee, Florida.
Well, that sounds very, very exciting compared to Essex.
Yes, well,
So,
listen.
they didn't get
Well, you don't have mermaids there.
Yeah, they didn't get very inventive in the UK.
Yeah.
It was just very sort of, yeah.
Essex, Sussex.
That's it. That's it. That's what you get.
Wessex.
So,
There's no
so,
Sussex for whatever reason.
so I've got a question to start with. Shall we start with the question?
Sure.
I've got here, what made you interested in Titanic at all in the first place? So let's go for Dalal. You tell us why. Where did you start with Titanic?
Oh, I have these phases where every couple of years I'm just like, going through books and books and books. I think it's, I think more than maybe the ship, it was such an interesting era in history because it's, 2 years before World War I started, the First World War. And then it was, 2 years after Edward the Seventh died, and then George took the throne. And, there was this big shift in history that happened from the Edwardian age, like there's just so many things that happened. And I think the Titanic really marked sort of this end of an era and this beginning of a completely new time. And it just that's what fascinated me, I think, the most about it. And then it was, it was such a high and low of humanity, like on the ship, like the culmination of, the extravagance and beauty, and then this absolute low of tragedy and yeah. So that's basically what drew me to it in the first place. And then, you can't stop reading about it. It's just like, there's so many interesting, especially the survivors when they started, talking and telling what happened on the ship. It's unbelievable what happened on the ship in this 2 hours, that 2 hours and 40 minutes or whatever, that it went down, and just unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fran, go on then.
And for me, listen, anything that says something dreams, the ship of dreams, this is what captured me. I'm like, thinking back, like, what were those people thinking? Like, oh my gosh, I could go on this ship. How awesome was that to be able to get on that ship for these people, from the high class, like Dalal was saying, to the people that were riding in third class, to be part of this historic event. So for me, when the actual thing became when I was watching a documentary on the Titanic, and I don't even remember how it came about, but how I was watching that documentary. But for me, it was more a thing where I slipped into it, in the sense that I had just climbed Kilimanjaro and did a book signing at the top of Kilimanjaro. And that picture of me doing the book signing at the top of Kilimanjaro circulated around the world. And I got an email out of the blue from Brian Day O'Connor. And at that point, I didn't know who he was. Like, I didn't know he was the U.S. Supreme Court Justice's son. And he said, oh, I find out you're an adventurer. I think that's fantastic. P.S. I'm going down to the Titanic. This isn't an email.
And why don't
so
I
get
went, emails like that?
What? Yeah, I know.
Why don't
Right?
I get emails
So
like that?
So I went like
If
this.
you get emails like that now, you're like, oh, that's spam.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Junk.
you're right
So
there.
I just went, and I didn't know who this guy was. So I just kidding around wrote, wow, that's really cool. Any room for another person? And then he wrote, are you serious? I go, hey, I didn't know people could go down to the wrecksite of the Titanic. I thought this was just a movie. What are you talking about? So he said, if you're really serious, I'll hook you up with the people. So I was like, well, yeah, hook me up with the people so I could find out about going down to the, even though when you do research, it wasn't the biggest ship disaster, it's the most famous ship disaster. And it's the one that, I mean, you can mention a whole bunch of other ships. People will be like, what ship is that? But you mentioned the Titanic. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know what the Titanic is and the story of the Titanic. So, anyway, I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into yet, like how I went down there, but I mean, that's what got me interested in it.
Yeah, not yet. We'll get there.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to ask, so okay, there's an interest in Titanic. See, for me, I didn't know really anything about the Titanic till about my early 20s. That's when I started collecting Titanic memorabilia. So for me, in my early 20s, I started collecting things, signatures, anything I can get my hands on. I was quite happy to do. But it wasn't until I was 45 that I found my birth father, and it was at that point I found out that I was related.
Wow.
So for me, it's been a journey probably the last 10 years. So that gives my age away.
So wait, so you, when you started getting interested, at that point, you didn't realize you had any biological relationship with the ship?
No,
oh,
not
that
at all.
Is so cool. Yeah.
See, I had this picture here.
Yes.
That is my mother there.
Right.
That's me.
Okay.
And all I ever knew was this lady was my real nan. So she was my nan.
Okay.
Right.
But I never knew who she was. And it wasn't until I found my birth father. She said, oh yeah, that's Ivy Hichens. That's Robert Hichens' daughter.
Oh, wow.
So that instantly brought it to life, because now I know who she was. Yeah, she was actually.
So
she was my.
So who raised you? A stepmother?
No, my mum did. My stepfather, if you like. He's the one I grew up with. He was my dad. That was it. But it wasn't until 2012, exactly 100 years, that then I found my birth father.
Wow.
And then it all went sort of quite yeah.
Right, then you
so
found
for me, it's been like, whoa. So it's been a whole new journey for me, and that's really why I wanted to sort of feel like this is a personal legacy, so that I can sort of I don't know, bring it to the next generation and inspire them to enjoy the story of Titanic. And you know, I enjoy school talks and things like that, so where you actually can go in and talk to the children. And I normally,
it's interesting because it's interesting because what's happening is like we're all coming from different angles about the same thing. You're coming because now it's also your legacy. Dalal's coming because she has the fascination. And I'm coming because I actually went down to the wrecksite. So I love it because it's three different parts of the same thing. Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, are you a collector or are you not a collector?
Okay. When you say a collector, okay, of all Titanic memorabilia?
Yeah.
When we were on the Titanic, and it's weird because I'm going to jump around, but when we were actually going down to the wreck site, in the gift store, what they had was things that were down by the Titanic. See, I'm more of not things that were down by, because there was two separate companies. There was a company that allows civilians at that point, you can't do it anymore, to go down there. And then there was a company that was the wreckage company, and allowed to take this stuff and bring it into the museums and everything. So they had replicas of stuff. But for me, the stuff that was more touching, like for example, when I went down there, they have a robotic arm when you're down by the wreck site. Not allowed to take stuff, but there's not much stuff left anyway, but not allowed to take stuff, but allowed to take samples of water, samples of rocks. So they were taking samples and putting them in the basket that was going to come up when we came up in the mirror, right? And one of the things they brought up, and it might be really hard to see because it's kind of faded, okay, is, okay, see this rock here? Okay. What they told us, and they had brought it up, and they divided into several rocks, was probably a rock from the iceberg that had hit the Titanic, because it was buried within the ship, and they had taken some rocks out, and then when they dated it and went, you know, during time, however the scientists on board the pier figured it out. So they signed it with the initials saying that it was from one of the glaciers, and they believed it was one that hit the Titanic. So because we, paid to go down there, this was our souvenir. So to me, these type of souvenirs are the ones that I look for instead of a replica or something. I'm like, I want something that was actually on the ship. Like at one point, I asked them, which of course they didn't let me do. I said, hey, can I jump in the water? And they go, you can't jump in the water. I was like, no. If you let me jump in the water, it was July. I could feel what those people felt in the water. I want to know like how cold they were. They said, we can't do that. But the pool that was on deck, because it's just a research ship that was on deck, the Keldysh, was filled with ocean water. And to tell you how cold that water was in July, to picture what it was like in April, I was like, these poor people, no wonder they died within such short amount of time from the hypothermia. But I just wanted to be immersed in the history. So that's
there's these crazy stories of I think it might have been the chef on board who, please correct me, who got so drunk and then kind of survived for an hour or something in the open water. And they still don't know how that could have happened, if it was the alcohol or...
Yeah, it's funny, because I've sort of heard that the alcohol doesn't make any difference. It's sort of...
that's what I heard too.
And I was thinking,
but maybe
not
there was... Yeah, there was one explanation where they said he might have been calmer and more relaxed.
Right,
and not as
more relaxed,
That's interesting, because you hear that story of somebody's drunk and they fall down the stairs because they're not so tense that a lot of times they don't break bones.
Yes.
Because so it could be that same thing, like not that, oh my God, oh, what am I doing? That panic might have been like, wow, I'm just on the water. It's a little cold. He might not have been in that panic mode.
Yeah.
So,
but it's just like this whole, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, to say, we can go off again. Just wondering, what about you? What's your collecting side of things? Do you collect anything at all, or?
No, I don't. But I remember I was, Fran and I used to hang out a lot because I used to live in New York, and I would just take a train up to her house, and we would talk about all the crazy adventures she has been through. And one of these days, like, we talked about the Titanic, and she showed me her album of the photos that were taken. And then can I say this? Can you show the cup?
Yes, I have it actually right here.
This is such a fascinating story.
Explain this. So when I went, because it was $35,000 to go down to the Titanic, and I didn't, I was like, how am I going to get $35,000? So I was like, well, I could get one person to give me $35,000, two people to give me $17,000, or 35,000 people to give me $1. So I was trying to figure like how to get down there. So I did raise sponsorship, but I wanted to be able to give people money. To give people something back for the sponsorship. So two things that I did. I had a certificate made. But my friend Vivian, who's a scientist, said, if you take a styrofoam cup, that's a 12-ounce coffee cup that you drink out of, and you put it in the basket outside the mirror, the 5 tons of pressure of the ocean that's on the mirror will shrink the cup. So if you picture a cup that's this big, right, it got shrunk down to this size, the size of a thimble.
Unbelievable.
So what I did was I put... Yes, so that's your size to that size. Tiny little size. Are you exactly?
Oh, you got it.
Exactly.
So I'm the only one without a cup, basically.
How did you get a cup, Simon?
Well, Dick Barton. I don't know if you know Dick Barton at all.
No.
He went down in 2000, and I had a nice chat with him, and he said, "Well, would you like a cup?" So I said, "Well, that would be really nice." So his one is from 2000, but you have the one that sort of shows you what it's before and then after.
Yeah, exactly. The before and after, right.
Yeah.
So this is from the last, we were the last civilians that were able to go down.
Yes.
And we didn't know that at the time.
Why can't you go down anymore? What's the reason?
Because what happened was they changed the rules that the only people that could go down now are scientists. So to be honest, there's a company right now, they found a way around it. the way around it is this. Like when we went down, we were passengers. We went down.
Yeah.
They have to go for 2 weeks in advance, and each of them is trained to do a certain thing. You're trained to take this measurement of this. You're trained. So technically, they're doing scientific research. I paid $35,000 to go down. If somebody wants to go down now, it's $250,000.
Yeah, I know.
And they
I know
have
it's well over
to be
£100,000. Yeah.
research. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, somebody just said, I collect books and conspiracy theories on the Titanic. I think that's a great answer. I do collect books. I go to thrift shop at least once a week and like find these like books of like, you know, Titanic survivors. And I have a whole book on the Supreme Court with all of the testimonies.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm a shocker for books as well. I've got hundreds of books. Absolutely ridiculous.
I also think
that is so Dalal. That's a collection of books on the Titanic. Yeah. So you're collecting the books. That's why I
decided I might as well just do one as well. Just add to the collection.
Well, well, I'm going to get your book so I can get to the collection. But I have magazines, like whenever they write about it, and everybody knows that the month of February was a big month for the Titanic because it was the 25th anniversary of the movie coming out. So that, you know, the local paper did a story on the fact that I went down there because, you know, not many people go down. It was like 108 at the time I went down. It was only 108 people in the world had gone down to the Titanic. More people have been to outer space.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, also because, I mean, you know, I guess one of the reasons was it was impossible to go down there because it's like, what is it like I think it's a Russian technology boat, right? It's the Zodiac boat.
Well, what it was is, okay, so the Titanic
and it wasn't found until
the
like
Titanic,
89.
in 1985, the Titanic site was discovered. You know, that's when they actually discovered it. But they didn't discover it with the submersible that went down. When Ballard discovered it, it was a robotic that went down. But my friend who was on the cruise that we went on the Titanic, this guy, Ralph White. Ralph White was the original photographer that took the first ever pictures of the stuff that was down by the Titanic. And when they did the movie, The Titanic, Ralph White designed the lighting fixture, which was called the Medusa, that was cables that went down that could light up the Titanic. So when they brought the mirrors down, they could shoot it. There are not, I don't know now, when we were doing it, only the mirrors and one other ship can go down to that 2.5 miles down. Right. The other ships, the other submersibles that go down, you know, don't go down 2.5 miles. They go down 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet. So that's why we had to go with the Russian, the Keldysh, on the same ship that they shot the movie. We were on the Keldysh with the Mir. And as a matter of fact, Anatoly Salgovich is the one that designed the mirrors. And he made a deal with Cameron, and he's in every Cameron movie. So if you remember at the beginning of the movie, when they they thought they brought the safe up and they opened it and all the papers came out and they thought they were going to find the diamond, right? When they did that, when they did that, Anatoly is standing behind and you hear him go, "No diamonds." And that guy is Anatoly Salgovich. He's the one that designed the mirror, and he's the pilot for everybody who went down there. So that's the deal, that he was in everything having to do with the Titanic with Cameron.
Okay, let's go for another question.
Wait a minute. Simon's got another question.
I've got another question. Right. Okay.
Simon, I want to ask, can I ask you a question? If you had the chance to go down there, would you?
Right. The next question is, would you go down?
You didn't answer my question.
You didn't answer her question.
Which we'll have to cross that one off now. You've already said it. Oh, that's fine. No. If I had the chance.
It's okay. You don't have to answer.
No, that's fine. No. I would.
No.
I would. But my wife wouldn't let me.
You know what? Well, first of all, no, we don't speak Italian. Maybe Dalal does. Somebody asked if we spoke Italian. No capisce. Okay. Pizza. Okay. You wouldn't go down? Your wife wouldn't let you go down?
I think I would, but I don't know my wife would. I think she'd be a bit worried that I wouldn't come up again, I think.
Okay. here's what I have to say about adventures, and Dalal knows me enough to know about all these crazy things. Okay. I feel that God gave us a life to live to the absolute fullest and to explore as many things as we can without putting yourself in crazy, situations. Although I can't say that I don't always follow that philosophy. However, my husband and my son are so used to me going, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down to the Titanic. And they know not to stop me because I will not be happy unless I get to do it. And the thing is, you could walk out to the street and get hit by a car. And you know what I mean? You could fall off a bike and break your neck. So you might as well go living your life, doing the things that you want to do. You know what I read yesterday? A friend of mine said that they were scared to come to Florida. I think it was you, Dalal. Actually said she didn't want to come because of alligators.
No.
And I read a story.
I don't want to be
cows kill more people than alligators. And I'm like, an innocent cow that gets milk.
Visit you in Florida.
What?
It wasn't me. I said I'll come visit you in Florida. I just want no crocodiles or alligators.
Okay, well, no crocodiles, alligators.
I had a scorpion in my friend's apartment yesterday. No,
I think the biggest thing we have over here is newts. I think the biggest thing we have over here is newts.
But I think the reason though for me is not to go down there because I think it's a little bit of a spiritual reason. I don't know, more than anything else. Because I do think we've talked about this, Fran, where you said being down there, then for a second it was it's a grave site, and I think it is a very so many people have died so tragically, and it's such a it's such a, I don't know, there's something weird about it to go do it. But I would go to the Keldish, I would sit on the Keldish, I'll be waving down while you go down, Fran, and then I would pick everybody's brain about it. So that's what I
Well, here's what I think about that. Because yes, it's a grave site, but so is the Civil War sites that people go to visit in Pennsylvania.
No. I completely agree. And I love cemeteries. So I go to almost every cemetery. But there's something about this that is just so strange to me to even fathom. So
I could see that, but I'll tell you one thing. It actually gave me a bigger connection with the Titanic than not going down there. Because there's something about when you see it on the screen in a movie, and then all of a sudden, the Titanic's 9 feet in front of you, and you have to actually wrap your head around, I am 2.5 miles down at the bottom of the ocean. This is where those people were. And it's so surreal. But it really brings home, especially when you see how far the bow is to where the stern is. And then you have to do a 15-minute ride in the submersible to get to where it is. And it really just, you see them so far apart that you think, wow, where did it break that they fell so far apart from each other,
Yeah.
Right, now for another question. Going for another question.
For endless of hours about this.
Okay, so what's the question?
Well, we've got this question. Someone just put on here, so interesting, you three just kill me. Well, that doesn't surprise me, actually. I think we're having a whale of a time here. Yes, I was going to say, what part of the story interests you most? Now, some people are very interested in the technical side, which I wondered if you might be as you went down in the submersible, that maybe it's a sense of technical, or is it the stories the stories that come out, or is it the people themselves? What is it? All of it, or is it just one of those? Something small that touches you more than others?
All right, for me personally, I have not read a lot of the stories. Like I went to the Titanic exhibits, and they give you those little cards about who each person is and stuff like that. For me, I always am fascinated with how people overcome tragedy. So for me, the fascination was, what did it feel? Always like, well, what were they thinking? How did certain people stay calm and get on there? What were the women how did the women feel that they decided, you know what, I'm going to stay with my husband and die on the ship instead of go there and be without my husband people keep texting in. So I keep trying to lift this thing because then I can't see your face. People, stop texting into my cell phone. Okay. So anyway, so the thing is, for me, when I was down there, that's why I wanted to feel the water. I wanted to know how cold was it that these people were in it. And then I wanted to know, like, okay, why didn't you know, okay, this is a fact, and maybe you know this, Simon, more, or Dalal, because you guys seem to have done more research. When we were down there, we were also down with Don Walsh. Don Walsh was one of the first people to go to the Marianas Trench, and he was one of the lecturers on the Keldysh when we were going down. And him and Ralph White said, when they found the ship, everybody keeps claiming that when they saw the iceberg, that they put it in, what did they put it, and I may get this wrong, they put it in slow forward or reverse, but whatever way that they said that they put it, the actual gears were in the opposite way than the way they said that the captain did it.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And so studying the wreck, you could learn a lot of things, just like when you study a wreck of a car or something, like when someone says the accident happened this way and you see it. Because what happened with the Titanic changed the whole trajectory of safety for future cruise ships and boats going forward. Because, you know, not enough life jackets. Oh, yeah, it's never going to crash. You know, taking everything for granted and all the things they did. It's just, so that's the thing that fascinates me about it, is how do people react in those situations? You know, the gut survival.
Yeah. Okay, Dalal, what about you, Dalal?
Okay. Well, I think there's these phases. I think that's why the story is so compelling, because it has these phases of complete extravagance and this experience, and people full of hopes and dreams of crossing the Atlantic in this amazing steamer. And then, you know, going full on low. And also, like you mentioned, the mechanics of it. I think, you know, during that time, now it's sometimes a little bit harder to be astounded, because, you know, those anchors, I think they had 2 anchors and one of them weighed about 60 tons. They had to have an endless amount of horses just to bring in the anchors. And I think now everything's done with machinery. You don't have that, you know, that wow factor anymore, because this was done by, you know, even though machinery was already used and industrialization was, like, you know, underway and full force ahead, there was so much done by hand and crafted and done. I think that is just so, I mean, these, like, there were plates that were never used, you know, paintings that were hung in there that are, you know, now on the bottom of the ocean. And I think, like, all of this combined just makes it, like, for such, like, a fascinating story, and in both of the spectrums, good and bad. But yeah, I think it's just, even, and it's such a weird story to continue reading on, because after it sunk, you know, there was obviously the people landed in New York, and then there was the big thing, oh my God, the Titanic has sunk, and, you know, who is going to be responsible now? And then there were these, you know, there were court dates in New York, there were court dates in Dublin, and then all of these people had to be brought in for testimony, you know, the survivors going through their stories again. You know, I don't know how much money they got, but I think it was like about $8,000 today, or pounds, for every life lost, which was just, you know, unbelievable. 8,000, you know, for a life lost.
I think you're
but,
right. Yeah, I think
8,000 what? $8,000 what? Who, you mean like a family member
I
got
think
that if someone died?
Yes, I think it was pounds, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, please. But,
okay, but money, yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, the First World War broke out, so everything had to be put on hold. And then, you know, people had to go. It's like a Pandora's box to be opened again and again and again. And then, you know, people forget so fast, and you know, newspapers were wrong on so many things. And then you have to go. And I think people are still doing that. They still go back and, like, is this actually correct? Did this actually happen? And, you know, how many people really died? Unknown. Like, they actually don't know. Who knows how many people? I mean, what did he say? 2,204 people were on board. They don't really know 100% how many people were on board, right?
Yeah.
Because so many cards and tickets got, you know, switched around, because there was the coal strike. It was supposed to be another ship that was, I think that's where also the conspiracy theories are coming in a lot of, like, you
Well,
know,
I mean, well, they said it was 2,223 passengers aboard,
easy.
1,517 people died. But someone
Yes.
asked the question about the Britannica. The Britannica was the sister ship. It was a different
Yes.
ship than the
It was a
Titanic.
different
It's
ship.
not the same
Yeah.
ship, because somebody I saw
But it's
asked
White
that
Star
question.
Line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
You know
White
what was
Star Line.
weird? And Dalal, you might know this from your reading, or maybe Simon. I can't remember the author. I have the book. I don't have it like sitting right here though. There was a guy who wrote a book 2 years before the Titanic crashed, with doing a whole story about a luxury ship that went and that crashed into an iceberg. It was so weird. It was almost identical to what actually happened to the Titanic.
I got that. I think I have got that.
I have that book. I just don't remember the
Oh,
name
you
of
had
the
that book?
author.
No,
Well, I
never
think-
remember names. I'm dreadful at names.
Yeah.
I think
Same
that
here.
a lot of these, there were a lot of stories that happened because most ships that sank were actually, my mom's just, hi. A lot of the ships that sank that,
Hi.
there's my mom.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to live Instagram.
Yeah.
a lot of the ships that sank not mainly because of turbulent weather, but because they were hit by a sandbank or an iceberg or things like that. So I think that was a very, very popular, I mean, popular is probably the wrong word, but that was the thing of the day, I guess, from sail ships to steamers, like sandbanks, icebergs. That's why a lot of them went
I
down.
understand. So you're saying that could be a common theme in a story.
Yes,
Somebody wrote.
who knows?
I saw someone wrote in the comments. Nobody worries about things till they happen, and then they do. And that's the thing that always gets to me about any of these type of stories, is how do people not, when they create something, not project into the future what could possibly happen and do something like a good Boy Scout to prevent it. Like, okay, if you have a car and it crashes, you know, you have to wait till so many people die to create airbags. I mean, if you're on, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you see that you're on a ship, you're middle of the ocean, and you have some life jackets, why wouldn't you have them for everybody? I mean, it's like, you know, I think, like, how do people not think ahead with common sense?
I think they did though, because the White Star Line was a ship, mainly, or ship company, you probably both know this, that was not known for its speed. It was known for its comfort. So they had the Atlantic, the Republic, the Britannic, the Olympic. They were known for being comforting journeys across the Atlantic, an experience of luxury. That's what the White Star Line was known for. There was
the Cunard line, wasn't it?
The Cunard.
line
So the Cunard was the enemy company, which was, I think they were more known for the speed, like get across fast, right?
Yeah.
But also when the Titanic finally, you know, was let out on the ocean, they changed. There was this big rivalry between these companies, and they said, oh, if we can be comfort and speed, you know, then we'd own the ocean, right? So this obviously made it more dangerous because they weren't maybe equipped for that. They didn't think about the consequences of, you know, faster boat or speedboat, like, you know. So, but the irony of the whole thing is that the Cunard was actually, you know, the one buying out the White Star Line at the end of the day, I believe. I'm not sure, but they were put together because it was White Star Line.
Let's go for another question.
Okay.
Okay. Which film? Is it the 1997 film?
White one.
Or is it The Night to Remember? Have you watched The Night to Remember?
Yes. Is that the one, the black and white, right?
That's the black and white one. That's the one with, that's, get a picture, A Night to Remember. There we go. Let's do that one.
Yes, that was heart-wrenching.
That's Night to Remember, and that's his signature. So that's Kenneth Moore's signature. He's one who played Lightoller in.
Nice.
Yes.
So,
Lightoller.
yeah, I have to admit, A Night to Remember always sort of sticks with me, that one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and then this is interesting because, well, obviously I watched all of them. The Night to Remember. We had, before we went down, while we were on the journey, they were showing us all the movies because they wanted us to get into the field.
Yeah, I'm sure they did, yeah.
But the night before we went down, they showed Ghosts of the Abyss.
Yes, that is very good.
That movie really made me go, wow, because they kept superimposing what it looked like then, what it looked like now. And that's when it all was like coming together in my head. Like, it's not just me watching this thing of happening. I'm seeing then and now, and seeing the contrast between the two. That one stuck in my mind when I was going down there.
Dalal, what would be would you go for the more modern film?
No. I would do the night to remember, the black and white one. It was just so heart-wrenching. It was so but I honestly have to say I have not seen Ghost of the Abyss, so
no, you need to, it is a Disney one. I think it's made by Walt Disney actually, but it's not really what you imagine, as in it's not as a Walt Disney film. It's not what you imagine. So
okay.
But it's very good. I think
I actually thought that was I thought that was Cameron also. Nights of the Abyss. I mean Ghost of the Abyss.
I can't remember. I know it's definitely a Walt Disney one.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, what they did was they superimposed, the then and now on the ship, so you could really see, like, this is all of them walking around really happy parading, and now you see the empty thing at the bottom of the ocean, and that's where
somebody in the Sorry.
That's it. No, that's it. Nothing more.
Somebody in the
someone
comments
mentions there. I think about. I think someone mentions about
the musicians.
One in China.
So I want to say yes.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I'm sorry.
Do you want to take that first?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Sorry, I think we have a little bit of a delay. Somebody mentioned the musicians in the comments, and I think that was also something that really struck a chord with me. No pun intended. But it was 8 gentlemen that were on board, and I believe only 3 of them were recovered later. Or was it 7 musicians? Oh, now I'm like, I think it was 8. Oh my God. But a violin was recovered because the
Wallace Hartley.
But
Wallace Hartley.
Wallace Hartley, that's right. Yes, the band leader, basically. His violin was in and it's just, I mean, this is so, like, it's so tragic, and then you start thinking about I think there were 2, because somebody mentioned animals too. I think there were 2 dogs were saved altogether, and they were lap dogs.
Yeah, small ones. I think there was one that was taken on a boat. They've recognised. Yeah.
There's so many things like that to think of, always in tragedies, also about animals, like and there's so many different levels. You got the cooks, like who's talking about like all the other people that were serving all the people, you know what I mean? Also, you're always talking about the survivors, and they usually are telling you those stories, but what about the cooks? What about the guy that was the janitor? What, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like those people too.
Postal workers, it was an RMS ship. So,
I think
you had brought up.
That's one thing I've sort of found really interesting, because I've been able to find some of the old videos, which I've been putting on my Instagram feed. Some of the survivor interviews. You wish there was more. You wish there was a lot more, being more depth of what they may have been able to tell you. But just having those few, it's quite interesting. The older, the better they get, because I think they're nearer the event. I think when you're getting someone who's maybe in their 80s, 90s, recalling something from when they're in their 20s or whatever, that it's not quite as vivid as maybe when it was done in the 50s, and they're sort of talking about the event. But it's just fascinating, isn't it, that they are just ordinary people, just like you and me.
I do think that the survivors' portraits are also so interesting, or generally these portraits are so interesting, because it took a long time for the Titanic to sink. Which usually, during that time, if a ship would get crushed or crashed anywhere, it was like 15 to 20 minutes oftentimes. And, you wouldn't have the time people were just panicking, and then it was over. But this was such a long time for people to actually be aware of the tragedy that they're, going through. And I think there was
I think, like you're saying, that because it meant people didn't get on the lifeboats. Because it wasn't such a dramatic, it wasn't a dramatic crash like you would have in a car or something like this. So for a long time, people were thinking, "I know it's all going to be fine. We'll go back to your beds." And why would I want to go onto a little boat in the cold when I can stay in a warm ship? And because all they're going to do is they're going to take us out on a little boat and then bring us back for breakfast. You know, so
yeah,
the first
yes,
boats, you know, the
yes,
first boats, including my great grandfather's lifeboat 6, went
yeah,
out with hardly anybody on because there was no one to put on it, and nobody wanted to
yes,
get on them. So
yeah,
that's the sad thing. It's not a matter of they didn't allow them on. To a certain
yes,
extent, there wasn't anybody there to go on
yeah.
in
I
the
also
early
think that
stations.
contributed to, I think it contributed a little bit to the panic being, you know, postponed until,
Yes,
you know, the
Right.
very end of it, because people were basic. I mean, they didn't say it was unsinkable. They say it was practically
yeah,
unsinkable. So they weren't that bold to say like it was completely unsinkable. But I think with that in mind, you know, a lot of men on the boat, because it was most of the women and children that were saved. Obviously, most of the men perished. But a lot of the men on the boat didn't have that much panic because they thought, oh, it's buoyant, you know, it's like it's going to hold us as long, and then by that time somebody's going to come and, you know, get us off. And then I think once they realized that wasn't going to happen, that's when the panic really set in. But yeah,
So I think
You know,
we're
you think
probably
of also when you're talking about the panic. I mean, just think. I mean, again, it goes back to the state of mind that you have to be in. If you're in a lifeboat that's not filled, like in that movie, in the movie where they said, let's go back and get more people, and then all of a sudden 50 more people want to come on your lifeboat, and you're like, of course your thing is you want to help as many people as possible, but then you also have to think of the practicality. If 50 people go on there, it's going to, and so just think of what a hard decision that
I
has
know.
to
I mean,
be.
it was
Well, I'll
interesting.
only take these 5, but those 10 out there, sorry, you can't come on the boat.
It's
I mean,
interesting
that
because I
has to be such a heart-wrenching decision,
yeah,
hearing people crying for help
yeah.
and not being able to get them.
I think with
yeah,
I met someone called David Haseman, who's Edith Haseman's son, who was a survivor, and her son was a quartermaster for years. And he said to me, there are certain things that if you're a quartermaster, there are certain things you need when you get into a lifeboat. You need to get away, and there's certain things that
yeah,
happen if you don't. He said, firstly, you've got the suction of the ship that could
Right.
possibly take you down.
yeah,
Secondly, being swamped is another possibility. Like you were saying, more people getting on, more than the boat can hold. The other thing is the reason why they want to get away very quickly is because things get thrown off a ship. So
Oh, you could get hit with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he said, you know, when you're in lifeboat,
mm-hmm.
your first reaction is to get as far away as possible, because what will
Yeah,
happen is people will throw deck chairs off, they'll throw everything. People will throw themselves off.
yes,
So with a
yeah,
lifeboat, you need to get away as far as possible, as quickly as possible. And of course, they were told to go towards a light that was in the distance. So that
yeah.
was their remit. They were
What?
told, get in the lifeboat, go to the light, drop them off where this light is, this boat that was there, then come back for more survivors, you know,
Yeah,
for more people.
mm-hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's the whole story really, because it's very easy to think, why didn't they just fill them all up? But because
Right.
there's certain
Wasn't
things
there
that have to
also
be
a
done.
boat that you might know this, Simon, but wasn't there a boat that actually turned and a lot of people were underneath the boat? So
Yes,
there were a few actually.
Oh,
Lightoller. I think
I didn't know
Lightoller.
that.
Light
Yeah, I think
color as well.
Lightoller
Yeah, that's what
was
it was. Yeah.
underneath. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
managed to. I think he got washed by the funnel, but he was actually under the boat and then got on top. But I think the two wireless operators were both on the upturned boat as well, and they spent the whole night standing on the lifeboat. But sadly, one of them didn't make it. So
Yeah.
I think it was Bride and Phillips, and Bride was the one that survived, and Phillips didn't.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, there's so many stories there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Now I think we're going to probably run out of time because I think we're only allowed an hour on
Yeah,
Instagram Live.
I see that. We got 3
But I
minutes
want
left.
to ask just one more
Yeah,
question
what do you say?
of you both, really, and that is, what are you up to now? What are you doing at the moment? I want to know what Dalal's doing when it comes to her music and what have you. Because my eldest son, loves to play Einaudi. He'll come home when we had our piano here. He'd come on and he'd start playing Einaudi for endless. It seems to just go on and round,
Amazing.
never stops. But he used to do it by
Yeah.
ear, just keep playing. We just knew straight away we were playing Einaudi. But so
Yeah,
what
the
are you up
pieces are
to at
so
the
beautiful.
moment? What's going on with your career?
Yeah, so I actually I'm releasing a single today. It's a piano piece by Max Richter. And I have about 30 more pieces that I'm releasing in the next weeks and months with Warner Classics and it's all solo piano. And then with my friend Maesa, we're going to be starting on an animated film very soon, and then scoring an independent film. And I'm in the process of sort of finishing my new album. And it's a lot of string ensembles and piano, solo piano pieces. So yeah, that's mainly what I'm preoccupied with.
So everybody that's on, and everybody will watch this now, need to follow Dalal to find out what's going on.
Dalal,
so make sure
what's
you
your
go
website?
to Dalal's Instagram. And
It's
Fran.
Dalal-music.com.
Okay. And so for me, I'm still doing stand-up comedy. Yesterday I was doing my motivational talk called How a World Record Mindset Can Help You Accomplish Anything. If you go to my website, Fran Capo, F-R-A-N-C-A-P-O, francapo.com, you can see my Tedx talk there. And I have my one-woman show, Love, Laughter, and Light, that I'm performing all around the country. I just did 2 movies. I was just elected into the National Comedy Hall of Fame. And I just signed up to now, next year with my friend Barbara, trek 12 miles into the Vietnam jungle, into the world's largest cave, the Sun Dong Yung, so big that a 747 can fit inside of it. So adventures, and now I can say it. I'm actually allowed to say it because it's St. Patty's Day. My son just told me he's having a baby.
Right.
Not him, his wife.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to Spencer.
So I'll be a Franma. Yeah.
Well, if that's any consolation, I've just literally become a granddad.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
my son and daughter just had their little girl, so it's a few weeks old now. So yes, I'm a granddad too. So
okay.
Brilliant stuff.
So before we get out, Simon, are you trying to put together maybe a Titanic event or something? Are you coming to Texas at any point in time?
I would love to come to the US. I'd love to come over. Maybe one day that will be something I can do.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, my intention is just to keep the story of Titanic alive.
Yeah.
Using Titanic memorabilia, which is interesting because the reason I had Titanic memorabilia, which is a bit of a historical thing, because when I started a Facebook group called Titanic Memorabilia, I thought there was nobody in the world that actually was interested in Titanic. So I sort of set up this group thinking maybe I'll get 5 or 6 people. And there's obviously 6,000 or 7,000 on there now. But then I thought, well, I'll have a go at the Instagram as well, and I'll keep the name Titanic Memorabilia. And obviously there's nearly 50,000 on there now. So it's just amazing. And there's been such a great interest and a love for the stories of Titanic and all that. So I'm really pleased. So yeah, keep following, keep looking at what's going on. And to say, well, what I'll hopefully do is this video, hopefully we'll get it onto YouTube so that people can just watch it again and have a laugh. And just enjoy what we've been able to talk about over the last hour.
Well, I think we didn't really touch on a lot of the stuff. So
we'll have to come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to come back and do it again. What I'll have to do is get some more different questions.
Exactly.
As far as the more difficult ones.
Yeah,
okay.
This is lovely.
Oh, no,
Thank you so
have
much,
to
Simon,
study.
for thinking of us and inviting us.
Yeah, well, hopefully I can get some more. We'll get some more guests as well, and we'll keep this rolling, and hopefully we'll make it more interesting, and we'll have more people and all sorts of things. So,
Great.
But I'm really thankful for you two for coming on and making the effort and getting through the technical difficulties to get here.
Hey, we did it.
We did it. So yeah, I think we'll probably wrap it up there and say thank you again both for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Look forward to next
Yeah,
time.
thank you so much for inviting us, and also thank you to everybody who joined our conversation.
Yes, it's not a video if we don't have people watching it. I mean, it's a video, but it's a video that no one watches. So thank you, and spread the word.
So fantastic, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.